Hello, everyone. I hope you all are doing very well. And at this peak hour of your examination, I'm very sure you must be completely engrossed in your preparation. So, here I am today discussing with you the revision test paper, that is RTP, for the May 23 examination. This is the audit intermediate RTP, which we are going to discuss. And when we have the discussion of this, I guarantee that you will be having a mindset very clearly. You'll be able to understand where exactly you will be standing as a part of your preparation. Okay, because the very concept of revision test papers is where questions are picked from every topic. You will get an understanding where your preparation has been up to the mark, where you're not able to recollect the concepts. And in this way, you'll be able to decide where you have to focus more upon at this point in time. But I believe you all must be through the process of now going to the revision. Okay, so it's the right time for us to take up this particular discussion of the revision test papers. Okay, so when we do the RTP, okay, you will get the kind of confidence that you really require at this point in time. Okay, also, if some areas you feel this is the part not recollecting by me or I'm not able to remember, then this also is very good because you'll be able to understand that yes, now is the time for me to even focus more on these particular topics. Okay, so when we talk about audit, we always say standards being more important. There are some particular topics where we focus on so much. And now when we are going to pick up each and every topic in detail, you will see the kind of questions that could be expected in the examination. But always understand, RTP, the discussion that we have, is only a way for you to understand that you are motivated and you are actually prepared for the examination. Nobody should have a mindset that we have done RTP, we know everything. That is not the concept. Okay, this is only going to help you in understanding what is the level of your preparation and a very good practice to randomly pick up questions from every topic and understand your level of preparation. All right, now this CA Inter RTP, when you go through, you will be very happy and satisfied because after a long time in audit, we have seen that there have been some kind of direct questions. So being sometimes in the past when we have been discussing, we have seen practical oriented questions have been more focused on. But when I went through this RTP, it was a kind of surprise element, you could say, that though the questions, the way it is formatted, it looks very complicated, but the answers are very clearly understood and they're very straightforward. The concepts are tested straightforward. But the problem in audit paper is that you will be knowing the concept. You will know the answers very well. But the thing is, you will not know for which question, what answer has to be written. So it becomes extremely important that you have to actually analyze the question properly, understand what it exactly is asking you, and then you're going to write about it. Okay. Otherwise, conceptually, you'll be really knowing everything. But to correlate properly what question, what answer has to be written, that is the biggest challenge which students face in the examination. And that is the reason I always tell when it comes to paper like audit, you have to read the question at least twice to understand what it is exactly focusing upon. Do not read some 2-3 pointers. And for example, if it is telling written representation, everything about written representation that you start populating in the paper. That should not be the thing. Okay. So you have to be very particular about what are they exactly asking you. Then you need to understand that, yes, this is the question. And only then you start writing the answer. Okay. So the focus in the audit paper should be on understanding the question correctly. Because once you know the question properly, I am very sure the answer you'll be able to write it. All right. So with this, let us get started with the discussion. As we always know that the audit paper will be having case study based MCQs. Then we are going to have direct incorrect questions and correct incorrect questions. And then we have the descriptive questions for a discussion. Okay. So let us, without any delay, let us open the RTP, go through every question properly and see how the questions are framed. I would consider this RTP to one of those where students who have really prepared by far will be able to crack it with ease and your level of confidence will actually be boosted. All right. So let us get started. All right. So the RTP that we have here, that is the paper 6, auditing and assurance. Okay. Always the RTP begins with the amendments, but here we have nothing to discuss because these are the same amendments that were given in the previous RTP. Now you might wonder why it is given every time. The logic is very simple. It is because the institute study material has still not got updated with these kind of amendments. Until the time the institute material is getting updated, it will always keep appearing in the RTP. Okay. So if you take the previous RTP, okay, there also you will see the same academic update, that is the amendment. And you will see that the section 53 has been amended with respect to the punishment. Okay. So when the companies issue share a discount, which is prohibited, okay, in only some cases it is allowed. And if the company issues, if it is not allowed, then they'll be punished. Correct. So the punishment has undergone an amendment, but the institute study material has still not got updated. And so that is same thing being put here. Okay. Then the second one, that is the second amendment, which is also given as regarding company audit, which is talking about section 147, which is punishment for non-compliance. This is also not a new one. It is the old one. Okay. Only here it is appearing because the institute material has still not been updated. Otherwise, here there have been changes with respect to the penalties that the auditor has to pay or the punishments. And that is the same thing that has been taken care of in the earlier amendment also. Okay. All right. But only thing the institute material is still not, got this kind of changes in the material. And that is the only reason it is still appearing here. Okay. All right. So nothing much to be discussed in the amendments, only two, which I've already picked up on the earlier ones. Okay. So now let us get started with the questions and answers. That is the part 2. Okay. First, we have the MCQs, that is, they are going to be case scenario wise. So multiple case study questions you have here. Okay. So case study will be going through it now quickly, and then we'll pick up the question. The best part about the case scenarios which have been given to you this time in the RTP are that they are not complicated. Okay, so the way they are given, also the length is quite small. They have not too much elaborated it, and the questions are straightforward. And the options have been given. Sometimes it becomes obvious that you would be able to pick up the correct one. Okay, so let us have the reading. The first case scenario. Kaur and Associate, a sole proprietor firm of Simran Kaur, is offered appointment as an auditor of the company engaged in manufacturing of automobile components for the first time. She is fact-checking about the integrity of the promoters of the company and key managerial persons. Matters such as competence of the staff to perform the engagement are also considered by her. The appointment is subsequently accepted by her. So she has done some things which are required by her as a part of the pre-requirements that are there. She is also taking into account number and location of branches of the company, requirement of the Schedule 3 of the Companies Act 2013, and the expected time by which audit has to be completed, keeping into mind the statutory requirements. Initially, she thought it proper to inquire key employees of the company in procurement and marketing department and planned for the same. She has also planned a visit to visit 3 plants of the company. The purpose of planned inquiry and visit is to identify and assess risk of material misstatement. So basically here, first of all, we understood what happened before the engagement acceptance. Then once she has accepted, how has she decided her strategy and planning? Okay, then that is how is going to identify the risk of material misstatement. A detailed set of instruction has been prepared by her and it has been handed over to the assistants in the engagement team. So this you study as a part of audit strategy, audit planning, and audit program. Okay, so once the plan is prepared, it is handed over to the staff and we call it to be an audit program. These set of instructions include detail of the extent of checking and the nature of audit procedure to be performed regarding purchase, sales, items of income, items of expenditure, etc. During the course of execution of the above set of instruction, it has been brought to our notice that the company is also producing substantial quantities of scrap generated during the manufacturing process. However, no instructions have been given to the engagement team in this regard. So in the audit program, there is one part which was not identified, which has been picked up on now during the course of audit, for which in the audit program instructions are not given. So what will be the required procedure? So basically the entire thing is with regard to the audit strategy, audit planning, and audit program. And also, if you see, they have taken some kind of a preliminary assessment which they have done. So we call it to be in a very simple language, preliminary engagement activities. Okay. So before you take up the engagement, you need to ensure whether you have the enough resources and all of that. You check your independence. Okay. All of that is required. So we call them to be preliminary engagement activity. So first part is talking basically about those activities. Second is talking about strategy and planning. Third is talking about the program which has been given. And also they're focused on something called as the revision, that is modification to the program. All right. So quite a simple case study. Based on the above, answer the following questions. Auditor is fact-checking about promoters and key managerial persons. She's also considering competence of the staff to perform the engagement. What is she trying to do? Very simple. I already gave the answer to you. She's conducting preliminary engagement activity. So if you look here, the answer will be B. Correct? Because she's conducting what? Preliminary engagement activity. Then moving to the next one. Consideration of number and location of branches, requirements of financial reporting framework, and expected time of completion are relevant factors primarily for which of the following? Okay, so number of locations, okay, the number and the location of branch, requirement of financial reporting framework, all of this we decide to understand the scope, direction, and timing, correct? So basically it is establishing what? Overall audit strategy. All right. So again, a straightforward question. Then, taking into account the description of the planned inquiry and visit, which of the following statement is true? Planned inquiry and visit fall in the area of audit strategy? No, because audit strategy will give you overall understanding. Planned inquiry and visit a planned risk assessment procedure and fall in the field of audit plan. So this B answer is obviously the correct one because it is concentrating on understanding the risk, and basically it falls under what? Audit plan, because it is detailed inquiry and visit that you're doing. Correct? Then the detailed set of instruction given to the assistants in the engagement team known as, without reading the options, also used to be able to. The answer will be what? Audit program. So whenever a list has been given to the management of what work has to be done, we call it to be what? An audit program. Correct? Then next one, the issue of generation of scrap has been overlooked in the detailed set of instruction given to the engagement team. What should be the proper course of action by CA Simran Kaur? Okay, so obviously, if suppose some idea or some part of the area was not taken up during the audit plan, and if it was not there in the audit program, what do? We have to modify it. Okay, so look at the answer. She should ignore this information. Absolutely not. You cannot do that. She should modify earlier set of instructions. So the answer would be the earlier set of instruction, that is audit program, has to be modified. Let us see the next one options. She should leave the matter. Absolutely not. She should put the ball in the court of the management. No. Okay, you cannot do that. It is your responsibility. So you need to now look into that area. So you need to modify the set of instructions that you have given to your staff. Okay, so I would not rate this to be a difficult question. I think if you have done the topic of planning, strategy, and program properly, you'll be able to crack it very easily. All right. Okay. Then moving on to the next one, that is the case scenario 2. So CA Rajan Pillai is heading the engagement team conducting audit of a company. While audit is in the progress, consider following issues regarding audit documentation. So the question is completely basing on the audit documentation. Okay. So here we need to take into account SA 230 properly. Now, first one, audit program was prepared assigning responsibility for different types of works to be performed by the team members. So set of instructions are given by audit program. So the engagement team consists of 4 members: Mohit, that is CA final student; Rohit, CA final student; Shobit, paid CA; and CA Rajan Pillai, partner of the audit firm. The team has determined materiality for the financial statement as a whole. The team has assessed risk of material misstatement to be low. CA Shobit is responsible for attending inventory count process and putting down its documentation part. During the course of audit, many related party transactions have come to notice. So they have given us a brief idea of all the things that they have done with regard to their audit and also the documentation. Okay. Now, they have told us the proper division of work, what they have done as a team. Okay. What is their assessment about the risk? Okay. Who has been delegated the inventory count process? And also what is the key area identified as risky, that is related party transactions. Okay. On the basis of the above, answer the following questions. Work relating to verification of revenue was assigned to Mr. Mohit in audit program. Okay. However, it has been performed by Rohit actually. So program is telling something, it is done by somebody else. Verification of trade receivable was planned to be carried out by Rohit in the audit program. However, it has been performed by CA Rajan Pillai due to last minute practical issue. Okay. Which of the following statement is most appropriate in this regard relating to audit documentation? So basically the question is telling the program gave a set of instruction, but looking at the real scenario, there was a modification. Somebody else performed it in the place of the one who was supposed to perform. So in that case, what do you do? The first option, audit program contains names of persons and work to be performed. It is immaterial whether work assigned to one person is performed by another person. You cannot say it is immaterial. Audit program was already prepared. Only persons assigned specific responsibilities can perform those duties. No, because audit program is always flexible. There could be modification, which I've seen in the previous question also. It is necessary that audit program be suitable, updated, or notes are given in the working papers to this effect so that planned duties are in accordance with the actual work performed. So this is going to be the appropriate answer. So there could be updation in the audit program. Whatever updations you do should be given in the working papers. Okay, and that is the way in which you'll be able to coordinate which duty has been performed by whom actually. Correct? So the answer here will be C. Okay, but let us also look at the next option. Change in the audit program or notes clarify the matter are required only when persons not performing the part of engagement team is deputed to perform the duty. Otherwise, this issue of intershuffling of team members is frivolous. No. So this is something not expected, or we have not even come across it. So the answer to this is going to be C. And documentation is not when you do or you don't do, it is always going to be. Whether you're doing it, not doing it, things have to be documented. Okay. Then moving to the next one. As regards team assessment of risk of material misstatement is low, which of the following statement is odd one relating to documentation of risk? So they are told in the question very clearly that they are considering their risk assessment to be low. So ROMM, that is risk of material misstatement, has been decided as part of the preliminary assessment to be low. So what is the odd man, that is wrong thing here, so which is wrong. Discussion amongst engagement team members and detail of significant decisions reached has to be documented. Obviously, it has to be documented. Details of risk assessment procedures have to be documented. Yes. Details about how understanding of each component of internal control was obtained has to be documented. Yes, because we do the review of the internal control, which needs to be documented. Precise calculation of risk of materiality or material misstatement has to be documented. Precise calculation, no. Precise calculation we never give. We give the basis of our calculation of materiality and everything fine, but precise calculation of risk we don't give. So the answer here is D. I think we have skipped one. I think we have not taken the second question. Okay. As regards materiality, which of the following statement is most appropriate in the context of audit documentation? Materiality has already been determined. There is no need to put it into working papers. Wrong. Materiality will be a part of working paper. Materiality depends upon professional judgment of the auditor. Whatever amount has been determined can be documented in the working papers. Okay. Materiality arrived on the basis of professional judgment along with factors considered in determination has to be documented. The appropriate answer is C. You have to tell it is obviously professional judgment, but what factors you consider should be taken into account. Okay, we study the concept of benchmarking also here. Materiality has been arrived upon professional judgment is also depends upon professional judgment of the auditor, whether he wants to document or not. No. So the answer here is going to be C. So 2.3, the answer is going to be D, where precise calculation of risk we don't give. Okay. We give the factors, we give everything else, but precise calculation is never given. Okay, then 2.4. CA Shobit is responsible for attending physical inventory count of the company. Which of the following is usually not true in this regard relating to audit documentation? All the questions are regarding documentation because the entire case study is based on the documentation requirement. Okay, so let's see what has to be documented with regard to physical inventory count. Okay, when you were attending. Date on which a physical inventory count process was attended by him should be documented, obviously, because date becomes important. It may also include photographs of the date showing his attendance of the inventory counting process at a particular location. That's fine. Details of test counting undertaken should form part of audit documentation. Yes. Details of obsolete goods found should be form part of documentation. Yes. Reports showing that stock conforms with the quality control standards in accordance with law are essential part of audit documentation. No. The answer is D. Okay, this did not require to be documented. Okay. Then, as regards to the related party transaction, which of the following should not be a part of audit documentation? Management representation as regards to related party transaction, which of the following should not be a part? Okay. Management representation letter in this regard required because they are responsible for this. Related party transaction policy of the company required. Documentation to show that transactions are arm's length price, very important. Documentation to show that transactions are at close length price. No, wrong. Okay, so the answer will be D, undoubtedly. So here also, if you read the questions, you'll be able to pick up very easily. Okay, so the answer here is going to be D, where we have never spoken about close length basis. Okay, so that is a wrong one. All right. So this was entirely based upon documentation requirement. And if you have done this topic properly, you'll be able to crack it very easily. And even the way the options are given, you'll be able to pick up the obvious ones. Okay, then general MCQ. First, the term drawing power is associated with which of the following facilities are sanctioned by the bank? So it is letter of credit. No, drawing power is cash credit limit. So bank overdraft and all, for this word, you are using the drawing power, correct? Dash aims at ascertaining that expenditure incurred has been on the purpose for which the grant and appropriation has been provided, and that the amount of such expenditure does not exceed the appropriation made. Okay, so they're telling what has been provided, you have to spend only that. So provided means provision has been made. So we study this as a part of government audit. When you do audit of expenditure, the discussion of audit against provision of funds. So whatever funds have been provided, okay, that much only you have to expend. It should not be exceeding that appropriation. So it is studied as a part of audit against provision of funds, not proprietary audit, not sanctions, not rules and order. Okay, now they have accounting based question here. Which of the following is not correct? So AS 18 is related party disclosure, correct. AS 10 is PPE, that is correct. AS 28 impairment of asset, again correct. AS 16 intangible asset, no, it is going to be what? AS 16 is what? Borrowing cost, correct? Yes. All right, then. Tools and techniques that auditors use in applying the principles of data analytics are known as computer aided, no. Computer aided audit tools, no. Computer accounting and auditing tools, no. CAT, we have studied computer assisted audit techniques. Answer is D. Correct? Then, fifth one, dash refers to the events or condition that indicate an incentive or pressure to commit fraud. A very simple question. Anything that is going to trigger an employee or the management or third party or anybody in the organization to commit fraud, we call it to be what? Fraud risk factor. So undoubtedly the answer is very simple. Fraud risk factors. These are the kinds of fraud and these are the factors, incentive and pressure. And you're giving the option as fraud, doesn't make sense. So they are called to be what? Fraud risk factors. Okay. All right. So these were also simple ones to handle. Okay. Let us take up the next one now. So we have now the questions regarding true and false. Okay, true or false. But very important discussion. You just cannot point out true or false. You need to very clearly pick up why true and why false. Okay, so incorrect, correct should not be the only answer that you give. You have to give both reason for true as well as reason for false. Only then you can fetch marks here. Okay, now according to essay 315, that is identifying and assessing the risk of material misstatement. The objective of the auditor is to identify and assess a risk of material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error, only at assertion level. So here the answer is going to be definitely incorrect, because the correct answer here, okay, without any doubt is going to be, it is incorrect. Reason being, not only assertion, but also at financial statement level. Correct? Then, control environment can prevent, detect and correct material misstatement. Now, control environment can alone prevent, detect and correct? No. Control environment is a part. It's a component of the internal control. Correct? So control environment alone will not be able to prevent, detect and correct. Okay. Further, we could say it could be the evaluation of the auditor, like specific internal controls in the given risky areas, or maybe monitoring of the controls. All of these together will be able to prevent, detect and correct. So control element is only a part of it. This cannot prevent and detect by itself. Correct? Then, while auditing the books of accounts of XYZ Limited, the auditor of the company looked at the inventory counting process to obtain audit evidence. So the word is they're telling they looked at the inventory counting process to obtain the audit evidence. In the present case, audit procedure used by the auditor is known as inspection. No, we have studied documentary inspections or the checking that we do. Okay, that is considered to be inspection. But when you talk about looking at something, it is visual. We call it to be what? Observation. So this procedure is considered to be observation. Then next, when inventory under custody and control of third party is material to the financial statement, the auditor can obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence regarding the existence and the condition of the inventory by taking written representation from the management. Inventory is with whom? Third party. How can you get the confirmation of this from the management representation letter? No. So here you have to understand that you have to actually communicate with the third party. Okay, so communication with the third party will be required, or you can perform some additional procedures like going to and visiting and performing procedures to understand the existence and condition. But obtaining written representation from management will not give you sufficient appropriate evidence. Here it is going to be third party communication becomes important for you. And also you can apply your other procedures by visiting the particular location and performing the procedures. Correct? Then, fifth one. So this also is incorrect. Assertions refer to the representation by the auditor to consider different types of potential misstatements. Now, this is very simple. Assertions. Assertions are representation by whom? Management, whether explicit or otherwise, about the information which is there in the financial statement. Correct? So obviously it is incorrect, because assertions are nothing but they are representations of the management. Correct? All right. Now let us take up the next one. Okay, sixth one. As per essay 200, overall objective of the auditor in conducting the audit of financial statement, the overall objectives of the auditor to obtain absolute assurance about whether financial statement as a whole are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud and error. I think any student will be able to get this correct, because you will never be able to obtain absolute. You will be obtaining reasonable assurance. And most importantly, this is not the only objective. You also have to give this by a written report, which you prepare as per the standards. Correct? So the auditor has to obtain a reasonable assurance whether financial statement as a whole are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud and error, and to report this opinion by a report. Then, once the overall audit has been established, the audit plan can be developed to address the various matters identified in the overall audit strategy. The establishment of overall audit strategy and the detailed plans are closely interrelated. 100% correct. Okay, so true. So SA 300 gives you about all this and tells you that these are interrelated. So first, there is going to be an overall audit strategy. Based on that, you'll have a detailed plan, but there could be changes in any one of them, which consequently will change the other. So they cannot say they are interchangeably used, but yes, they are closely related. Correct? And there is no sequential requirement. One can be after the other. Okay. Teaming and lading is one of the techniques of inflating the cash items. Absolutely not. It is going to suppress. Okay, it is going to show less. Teaming and lading, as you must be already knowing, it is going to be with regard to when you talk about teaming and lading is where debtor's money is received and you transfer to somebody else. So correct, you're trying to bring it down, suppressing of the cash balance. Correct? Okay. So that was regarding the correct and incorrect discussion. So now I think we'll be able to move on very quickly with the questions that are appearing from every topic. Okay, so this is a very good practice from RTP that you can actually have. Once you've completed the syllabus, if you actually go through these questions, which are randomly picked from every topic, you will be able to get a very clear insight of your preparation level. Okay, so let us get started. First one is from the topic of nature, scope and objective. Now, professional integrity and independence are considered essential characteristic of all the professions, correct? There are two interlinked perspectives of independence of auditor, one independence of mind and two independence of appearance. Okay, so very clearly the question is focusing on you to explain what is independence of mind and independence of appearance. Okay, so this is a straightforward question, nothing to worry about. So we know integrity and independence is what we have to adhere to, and you have to explain these two concepts of independence, which is mind and appearance. Correct? Then the chartered accountants have the responsibility to remain independent by taking into account the context in which they practice, the threats to independence and the safeguards available to eliminate the threats. Explain guiding principles. So the guiding principles are readily available with us. So you know what are the guiding principles to understand about independence and to eliminate this threat or to mitigate the threats. Correct? So this is also about threats and safeguard. Then the actions of the engagement partner, an appropriate message. Okay. An appropriate message to all the other members of the engagement team in taking responsibility of overall quality on the each engagement emphasizes the importance of the audit quality explained with respect to SA 220. Okay, so SA 220 is quality control of the audit of financial statements, correct? So there we talk about leadership and all of that. So here it is the duty of the engagement partner that he is responsible to take care of the overall quality of the audit engagement. So wherein, you know, you have to maintain quality because you need to adhere with the standards of all the professional standards have been adhered to, whether code of ethics have been followed or not. You have to give the emphasis of the importance of quality that you have for the, the work that you're going to perform. So you have an answer available for this, that is SA 220, which talks about how will the engagement partner take up the leadership, okay, with respect to taking the responsibility of how he's going to maintain the overall quality of the engagement. Okay, then 3 is a second part. Audit is distinct from investigation. Okay, we study as a part of very first topic. However, it is quite possible that sometimes investigations result from prima facie findings of the auditor. So here basically you need to understand properly what is the difference between investigation and audit. Okay, and also we can understand that sometimes during the course of audit, you come across certain elements which triggers investigation. Correct? So that is the point. So here it is distinction between audit and investigation. And they say that where investigation is there, okay, sometime by the auditor, there could be some serious irregularities, serious findings which have been found by the auditor, because of which it could trigger or it could enable the further proceeding, that is investigation, to happen. Okay, so these questions are not complicated. They're quite simple about independence, and it is talking about investigation and all of that. Okay. Then audit strategy, audit planning, audit program. So whenever we do, we always understand that this topic is very important. Okay, especially inter-level, this becomes a very important discussion because you can see the questions, okay, quite a bit from this topic. So audit strategy, planning and program. SA 300 states auditors should plan his work to enable to conduct effective audit in efficient and timely manner, that we know. What matters should be covered in such plan? So you have to write all the areas which have to be covered. Okay, so you have to actually talk about the coverage to be covered in the audit plan. So here they're talking about the overall audit strategy, what all you take up. Okay, so basically it is telling what should be covered in the plan. Okay, so you have to be able to take the risk assessment, then plan the procedures, okay, perform all the analytical procedures and all of that. So that is the way in which you're going to decide about the planning. Adequate planning benefits of audit of financial statement in several ways. Very simple question, straightforward. Benefits of audit planning. Okay, proper coordination, timely communication, timely completion of the audit report. Okay, so all of this. Then in establishing the overall audit strategy, the auditor shall identify the characteristic of the engagement and defines its scope. So you have to give again a straightforward question talking about characteristics of the engagement and define its scope. So basically it is about overall audit strategy. Correct? So the questions here are also very simple, nothing very difficult. So what should be the matters covered by the plan, then benefits, and then overall audit strategy. Okay. So this topic is quite simple, focusing on all these things. Okay, moving forward, we have the chapter 3, audit documentation, audit evidence. So here they are framed in the form of case scenario. Messrs. Samar Amar and Associates are the statutory auditors of Ganga Limited for the financial year 2021. CA Samar is the engagement partner for such assignment. Okay. While discussing with the engagement team, CA Samar briefed his team that the auditor shall assemble the audit documentation in the audit file and complete the administrative process of the assembling the final audit file on the timely basis after the date of auditor's report. SQC1 requires firm to establish policies and procedures for the retention of the engagement documentation. So very simple, here you have to give about SA 230, which is going to talk about documentation. Okay, the requirement of documentation, then what is the assembly of final audit file. Okay, all of that. And then you have to also talk about SQC1, where they talk about the period, okay, for the assembly. Also retention period, correct? So the question is focusing on two standards, one quality control, one on auditing. That is, one is SA 230, as I told you already, documentation, and SQC1, quality control. Clear? So again, this question was simple. Then the questions will look simple only if you have done it. Okay, otherwise it all is going to look at Latin and Greek. So revision test papers should be tested upon once you are into a proper phase of actually completion of your syllabus. Only then you get the confidence, otherwise you'll be lost. Okay, now SA 230 audit documentation deals with auditor's responsibility to prepare audit documentation for the auditor financial statement. That's correct. Such audit documentation serves various purposes. That's again a straightforward question. Benefits of documentation. Or you can also use it as purpose of audit documentation. It helps in future planning. It helps in the future audits. It's a defense for the auditor. Okay, properly understanding the work completion, everything. Correct? Then. Messrs. Suraj and Associates are statutory auditors of Uraj Limited for the financial year 2020-21. During the course of audit, CA Suraj, the engagement partner, requested the management of the company to provide written representation with respect to valuation of a transaction. The management, however, did not provide the same to CA Suraj. What course of action should CA Suraj follow in this situation? Very simple. It is talking about written representation. We do SA 580, where very important discussion where we have always, and we focus on this and we say that representation sought by the auditor not provided. Correct? So there we always look into the alternative course of action, try to understand why, communicate all these things. Correct? So this, as per SA 580, when we do something as very important, this particular area we actually consider it to be very, very, required for descriptive part of the questions. Because this question that is not provided for, or maybe when we can say written representation, when you have received, you have a doubt as to the reliability of it, then that also question becomes very important, because as per SA 580 written representation, two are important questions as a part of descriptive. I will not say that's the only part, because MCQ could be questioned on the other areas of 580. But these two would be questioned on descriptive. One is this, obviously, when you're not able to obtain the written representation. Second is when you have a doubt as to the reliability, then what you will do. So these two questions obviously will become very important as a part of SA 580. Then, explain the various factors affecting auditor's judgment as to the sufficiency of the audit evidence. So whenever you talk about audit evidence, SA 500, we talk about sufficiency and appropriateness. So in sufficiency, we study about the factors like the risk of material misstatement, materiality, correct? All of those things. Also, sufficiency, and similarly, a question on appropriateness also. Okay. So I think you need to prepare for both of them because they become important to understand. So whether a particular evidence is sufficient or not, or whether a particular evidence is appropriate or not, will depend upon certain factors. So what are that? You have to give the answer here. Correct? Then, eighth one, what is the objective of the auditor with respect to opening balance when conducting initial audit engagement? Again, a straightforward question. SA 510, initial audit engagements, opening balances. So this particular standard makes it very, very clear that what are the objectives of the auditor when it is the first time audit, or maybe the previous year, or it is the first time audit of the client, or maybe you are doing the audit of the client for the first time. Anytime we call it to be what? Initial audit engagement. Okay, so you have a responsibility towards the opening balance. So there are 2-3 pointers which you have to pick up and write it correctly here. Okay, so again, this is not a difficult one. If you have studied the standard, you'll be able to pick up. Okay, all right. Then chapter 4 is about risk assessment and internal control. Now let's see the questions here. It has been suggested that actual operation of the internal control should be tested by application of procedural test and examination in depth. Explain with the help of example respect of procedure of our sales. Okay, this we do it very often, and we also actually study as a part of the material itself. The example of sales only is given. So this question is regarding what? Examination in depth, also called as a walkthrough test. Okay, where we study that at every stage of the auditor actually checks every stage. Okay, it picks up a particular transaction from the beginning to the end, so that at every area or every place there is a proper control in place or not. Okay, so that detailed checking of few transactions, we call it to be examination in depth. Okay, which is basically done to ensure controls are operating effectively or not. And here they have told you to give one proper example regarding sales. So from the time of the sales order, okay, till the receipt. Okay, you have the procedure, correct? So at every place where the controls are operating or not, the auditor will check. So this is what they're questioning here. Okay, so you have to write about the process and talk about how the checking could be done. All right, then briefly discuss limitation of internal control. Very straightforward question. We have the answer to this limitation of internal control. That means how much ever you try, you'll be able to obtain reasonable assurance, because internal controls can never give absolute understanding because they have inherent limitations. Collusion among the employees, management's abuse of responsibility. Then there could be cost benefit analysis. Sometimes the cost is more. Okay, continuous updation in the technology or outdated techniques would be there. Correct. So all of these could be what? The limitations that you have on internal control. Then 10th, the division of internal control into 5 components provide useful framework for auditors to consider how different aspects of entities' internal control may affect the audit. Mention those components. Very straightforward. Okay. Basically, if they give you explanation or ask you explanation for 1 or 2 components, I think it would be much better than to actually give you all the components. So you talk about control environment, you talk about risk assessment procedures of the management, information system, control activities, monitoring. Okay, so these all are considered to be the components of the internal control. Correct? Then next we discuss about is fraud. Okay, fraud and responsibility of the auditor. 11th question, detection of manipulation of accounts with a view to presenting a false state of affairs is a task requiring great tact and intelligence. Correct. Explain, stating clearly the objective behind committing fraud. Now, very simple. Okay. So they're asking you regarding what could be the incentives. Okay. Or what could be the fraud risk factors for the purpose of committing fraud. Okay, obviously it required great tact and intelligence also, and also they're basically questioning upon the fraud risk factors like your incentive, pressure, rationalization, okay, or maybe attitude of the person, all of those. Correct? Then, in an audit of financial statement of PQR Limited, CA Vikas Khemka finds that the cash receipts have been suppressed. Okay, give examples of such technique. So this you'll be able to correlate. Just now we discussed one in the MCQs. Sorry, in the direct incorrect. Okay, it was in correct incorrect. Okay, where we spoke about teaming and lading. Okay, there we spoke about suppression. So one of the example is given in here only. So one is teaming and lading. Other could be not fully recording the cash sales, or maybe writing off a debtor as bad even after you received the money. Okay, so all of that could be the reasons or the examples that you can give where you can say cash receipts have been suppressed. Okay, all right. So that is regarding fraud. Again, here also they have not taken very difficult questions, but understand the questions are not difficult, but then you need to understand clearly what they're telling. Okay, because objective behind committing the fraud you need to pick up correctly, or also you're telling examples or techniques. So this has to strike your mind properly at that point. Examples you need to tell immediately. Okay, all right. Then audit in automated environment, questions will be always straightforward here. So first, with respect to audit in automated environment, explain the following. So these are the definitions given to you. What is CAT? What is data analytics, database, information system, privilege access? Okay, so these are CAT, we know, computer assisted audit programs. So these are the programs assisting the auditor in the automated environment to perform the audit. Data analytics is analyzing the data, modeling it, getting some meaningful information. Database is the total data available, okay, with the system that you're going to access. Information system, privilege access. That is a part of the controls. Correct? Then, next question, 14th one. The auditor's responsibility include reporting on internal financial controls over financial reporting, which includes an understanding of IT environment of the company and relevant risk and controls. Mention the situation where IT will be relevant to an audit. For this, you have to tell where IT has become very relevant. If you are working in the very high-tech environment, or where it is e-commerce, okay, or entire business is automated, okay, then it becomes relevant to the audit. So when you look at this particular topic, okay, from your material, okay, then you'll be able to pick up this particular question directly. Okay, so it is again a straightforward question. You need to understand to read this part of the question correctly. So you have to mention the situations where IT will be relevant. So we have examples there why IT has become relevant for the audit, because the client system itself has become automated. So it has become high-tech, complex. There has been different type of technologies used. Okay, it has e-commerce world. Okay, all of that, because of which, it has become important for the auditor also to bring in IT in his audit. Okay, then one of the best topics that you have, audit sampling. Let us see the questions here for audit sampling. Random selection ensures that all the items in the population or within the stratum have equal chance of getting selected. Correct. Random sampling includes two very popular methods. Explain. Very simple. It is simple random sampling. And here with the word itself, we can understand stratified sampling. So very simple random, stratified sampling. Okay, these two are the methods which you could explain in detail even by giving example. While planning the audit of S Limited, you want to apply sampling techniques. What are the risk factors you should keep in mind? Or this we do a very important discussion, and we say that two procedures where sampling applied is test of controls and then test of details. Correct? The kind of risk that we face, sampling risk in case of test of control is under reliance and over reliance. And in the case of test of details, we have what? In test of details, we have incorrect acceptance or incorrect rejection. Correct? So because of which efficiency or the effectiveness of the audit will be changing or will be affected. So all that is what you're going to actually write here. Okay. Again, this, if you have done this topic of audit sampling, you'll be able to write it very easily and very well. Okay. Again, conceptual. Then analytical procedure. Okay. If analytical procedure performed in accordance with SA 520 identifies fluctuation or relationship that are inconsistent with other relevant information or that differ from the expected values by significant amount, the auditor shall investigate such differences. Yes. Okay, so analytical procedures basically be performed to identify unusual fluctuations and all. So yes, if you find out any kind of fluctuation, then we are going to investigate it further by applying some further audit procedures, by performing certain additional procedures and to identify it. Okay, fine. Then while applying the substantive analytical procedures, what techniques can be used by the statutory auditor of the company to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence? A very straightforward question. Okay. Usually a question like this doesn't come up, whether they pick up one technique and ask you in detail, but they're asking you all the techniques. So what are the techniques we have? Trend, we have ratios, a reasonableness check. Then you have some statistical tools like remodeling and all that. Okay, structural modeling. Okay, all of that. So they're just giving you, telling you to write the techniques. They can give a brief everywhere and you can give some examples also. Okay, then. Audit of items of financial statement, one of the important questions area, like the important area for discussion. While verifying PPE of the client, the auditor also needs to consider whether PPE has been valued appropriately as per the generally accepted accounting principles and practices. So usually students, what they do is they bluntly actually read the question PPE. Everything I know regarding auditing PPE, I'll go on writing it. No, you have to read the question very carefully and understand valuation is what they're asking. So very clearly you keep in mind the assertion to be checked is your valuation. So based on that, you have to pick up the things like you will be checking about the cost, you'll be checking about depreciation, life, then impairment. Correct, if there has been any kind of revaluation and all that. So these are the areas that you're going to pick up because all of this is connected to the valuation. Because they're not asking you all the assertions. They're asking you which one? Only valuation. So your question should be properly connected only to what? Valuation. Okay, so you have to read the question here properly. Then 20th A, what they say? What are the required disclosure for cash and cash equivalent to be made by the company as per Schedule 3 of the Part 1? That is the Part 1 that is talking about balance sheet to the Companies Act 2013. Now, this is again, if you really want to score an audit, okay, you should be really having a very good grip over these accounting requirements also, that is Schedule 3 disclosure requirements, because these days we see that the institute actually questions upon the requirements also. So here, if you see, this is not question on audit. Okay, it is the question that the auditor should have a knowledge about. Correct. So required disclosures for cash and cash equivalent. Okay. So this becomes important. So this is straightforward question, Schedule 3 requirements and all. You're going to write in detail, presentation requirements. Then 20B, CA Saurabh is a statutory auditor of UVW Limited for the financial year 2021. While verifying the purchases made by UVW Limited, CA Saurabh decided to perform analytical procedure to obtain audit evidence regarding overall reasonableness of purchase quantity and price of purchases. A very interesting question. So in the audit of items of financial statement, the question is coming about analytical procedure. Now, this is a key role for you to, or the key area for you to understand how well your preparation should be as an auditor, as a student of inter. You just cannot have a surfacing kind of studying, only a limited part you study and you finish off. That cannot be. Here, it very clearly shows that, yes, a detailed preparation is required. So when you talk about audit of items of financial statement, you talk about analytical procedures required to check about the purchase quantity and price. That is reasonableness, whether it is there or not. Correct? So then we talk about the stock consumption analysis you do, ratios. Okay, then you have consumption analysis that you do. Correct? So these are basically the things that you'll be able to pick up only if you're able to study in detail properly. Okay, so consumption ratios you prepare or data is there. Then you do stock consumption. Then there is going to be ratios. So all this will enable you to obtain reasonableness. Okay, or the purchase quantity and the price of the purchases. Okay, then the so company audit questions always will be not complicated, trust me for this. Okay, so if you have a good hand on this particular topic because you study law also the same and audit also, I think you will get a grip over this for sure. XYZ Limited removes its statutory auditor by passing a resolution in the meeting of the board of directors for his removal without obtaining prior approval of central government. Such removal of the auditor was made before the expiry of the term. Give your comments. Obviously, you know this. So we have section 140 subsection 1, which talks about removal of the auditor before the expiry of the term. So where they say you first conduct the board meeting, then you apply to central government. After you get the approval, you conduct the general meeting. Okay. In the general meeting, you pass a special resolution. If all of these are happening, and also you provide what? The auditor the opportunity of being heard. If all of this you do it, then in that case, we say what? That yes, the removal is as per section 140 subsection 1, otherwise it is not correct. Okay, so here they have not taken the approval and it has been made before the expiry of the term, so obviously it is wrong. Also, they don't talk about the special resolution which is required. Okay, so obviously there are multiple wrong things, non-compliance, so you have to rectify and give your answer accordingly. Then 22nd, S Private Limited has a paid up share capital of 49 crores and borrowing from bank of 99 crores. Okay, the audit firm P&L Company was appointed as the auditor to the company for one term of 6 years. No. Is the provision of rotation of auditors applicable to the company? Okay, so two questions are there. First of all, we can very straight away knock off this one because there cannot be an appointment of the auditor for one term of 6 years. No, it cannot be. Second, is rotation applicable? You have to look at the understanding. It's a private company. So we know rotation of auditors will be applicable to every listed company. Then unlisted, we look at the paid up capital. Paid up capital should be 10 crore or above. Okay, or more. Private company, paid up capital, we look into 50 crore and above. If you don't fall under these two thresholds, then we look into borrowings from banks and financial institutions. And the limit is 50 crore and above. Correct? So as Private Limited has a paid up capital of 49 crore, okay, it doesn't fall into this limit. Okay, so you have to look into borrowing. So borrowing is 99 crore. Okay, so obviously for S Private Limited, rotation will become applicable. And then you can explain the concept of rotation where you can talk about if it is appointing a firm, the 2 terms of 5 years. And if it is an individual, 1 term of 5 years, which will then serve a cooling period of 5 years for both of them same. Okay, so that should be a completion of your answer. Moving on, next one, we have the question 23. The recommendation for appointment of auditor is one of the several functions performed by the audit committee. Discuss other key responsibilities. Again, a straightforward question on responsibility of the audit committee. Okay, so you have responsibilities of overseeing, monitoring, okay, of accounting professionals, practices, okay, whether quality is maintained or not. Okay, call for information, okay, investigations can be conducted and all. Okay, they can ask order for all that. Okay, so basically audit committee. Not investigations and all, but yes, audit committee will definitely be helping in oversighting everything. So they are going to basically act as a monitoring control in the company. Okay, so there are the responsibilities given very clearly as per section 177. That is what you have to apply with. Then chapter 11, audit report, again an important discussion. The description of management's responsibility in the auditor's report include reference to management's responsibility, as it helps to explain the user the premise on which the audit is conducted. Explain. So here you have to talk about in audit report. Okay, we study as a part of SA 700 that one of the section of the audit report is the management responsibility. Okay, so where the responsibility is regarding preparation of the financial statement as per FRF, then internal control, safeguarding of the assets, then assessing the going concern assumption whether it is correct or not, then also to prepare financial statement giving true and fair view. So these are all the things that we are actually deciding upon and talking about in the audit report regarding management's responsibility, so that people actually know the premise on which the audit is conducted. Correct? Then in considering the qualitative aspects of entity accounting practices, the auditor becomes aware of possible bias of management judgment. The auditor may conclude that lack of neutrality together with uncorrected misstatement cause financial statements to be materially misstated. Explain and analyze the indicators of lack of neutrality. So lack of neutrality of the management, quite simple to understand. Here is where the auditor actually goes to the management and is communicating regarding the areas where he has identified misstatement and asks the management to rectify. But what management is doing, some selective items only they are rectifying. Very selective. So out of maybe 15 you have given, 5 they're ready, 10 they're not willing to. So they are doing very selectively the picking up of every particular misstatement, and not all the misstatements are rectified. Very selected misstatements they are picking up on. That is one. Second is their biasness, or it could be a management bias towards estimates. Okay, so these could be the kind of discussion that you can have where we can say indicators of lack of neutrality. So when they are not correcting everything what the auditor is bringing into the notice, they are not neutral. And also with regard to the management bias with regard to estimates, if you find it to be unreasonable and you tell them but they have their own judgment, that is management bias, then that means they are not neutral. Okay, so that could be the example here. Now, bank audit, the questions this time have been very generalized. They have not basically actually focused on the bank as a whole, but auditing as a part of audit concept, they have focused more on. Okay. Explain the audit approach you would follow to check operating expenses of the bank. So operating expenses of the bank is routine expenses that we're talking about. So how you check it? This could be a part of audit of items also of financial statements. So particularly following in part of bank audit, not that relevant. Okay. Mr. Rishikesh, a bank manager, develops controls to assist in managing key business and financial risk. Discuss various requirements for effective risk management system. This is something similar to that would be studied as a part of risk assessment. Okay, where we talk about the components of internal controls also. So here we talk about, understanding the entity, then doing the risk assessment process, then putting up controls, okay, understanding the information system, monitoring the controls. So all of this can be taken as the answer. So what is the various requirements is something similar to the components of the controls, components of IC. Okay, when I take you to suggested answers, we can have a understanding of this quite easily. Okay, you need to relate it properly. Then chapter 13, audit of different items of different types of entities. One is government question has been asked. So government expenditure audit we do. So we have audit of rules and regulations, audit of sanction, then audit against provision of funds, proprietary audit. Then you have performance audit where you talk about economy, efficiency and effectiveness. Correct? So basically it has been given as a big question regarding the total concept of government audit. Okay, government expenditure. Okay, but in exam, I don't think they will be having a question like this full-fledged on, entire concept of government audit, but basically they could pick up one. Like they could ask you what you mean by proprietary audit. They could ask you what is the meaning of performance audit. So particularly, I believe in the exam, you could have a question where particular area could be tested upon. Okay, then. When you talk about special audits, local bodies is picked up, but then you understand they're not asking you everything about local bodies. State important objective of the local bodies. So you need to tell why is the audit of local bodies done. Okay, that is the question about. All right. So if you have looked into this, this particular RTP this time is telling you something regarding more of direct questions have been there. Okay, so questions are, I would not say they're easy because if something is easy or something is manageable is when you're really prepared very well. And I'm very sure now you're in the verge of preparation and you're revising. Okay, so maybe some questions must have not triggered you immediately. But yes, when you look at the suggested answers and when you try to recollect, you'll be able to pick up very easily. Also understand, RTPs are meant only for the purpose for you to evaluate yourself properly and see where you're standing properly. Okay. Do not say that we have done RTP, that means we have done a lot. We can expect questions from this in the examination. If you're lucky enough, you'll have questions coming in from here. But then you should understand the kind of question and suggested answers. I would recommend you read them properly. This would be a proper guidance for you to understand how questions are expected to be written in the paper like audit in the examination. Okay. So that proper reading will give you an insight of how is the answer required to be written. So try to tell yourself the answer and then match it with what is given the suggested answers. See what you missed out, see what you could write correctly, see the sentence framing, how it is. So this will be a good exercise for you to understand if you're really prepared for the subject, which is so much theoretical. A lot of good practice in writing is required. So because some students face a big challenge with regard to writing practice, I think this exercise will definitely help you. Okay. So in suggested answers, there are 2 or 3 questions which I just want to pick up so that, we are clear through with it. So suggested answers, when you talk about a case scenario, I don't have any doubt because I think what we have done is perfectly right because there were no doubt or dubious things anywhere. Yeah, MCQs are all correct. Okay, this we have discussed in detail with the reasoning properly. Okay, then I told you independence of mind and independence of appearance both have to be spoken about here. So that is what they have explained. Okay, then these are the following guidelines of safeguarding the threats. Then quality control, I told you it's required for professional standards and all of that. Okay. Then audit is distinct from investigation. So you have to give a proper understanding of what is audit, what is investigation, and how sometimes audit could trigger investigation. Okay, then plan should cover about acquiring knowledge of client system, how much degree of reliance to place on internal control, NTE of the audit procedures, coordinating of the work done and all. Correct? Then overall audit strategy. This is the scope, timing, and direction. Okay, that is what you write it here. Then SQC1 we have taken about and SA 230 together, where we spoke about documentation and what is the timeline. So for completion of your when you talk about audit file, 60 days timeline is given to you, and retention also they say minimum period of 7 years from the date of signing the audit report. Okay, so you have to be very clear with this. For the purpose is nothing but the benefit or the purpose for which you're maintaining it. Then what will happen if you don't get the written representation requested? I told you discuss, reevaluate the integrity, take proper action, alternative procedure. If nothing is acceptable, then you can also modify the opinion. Then what affects the sufficiency, materiality, risk, okay, then size of population, that all we have discussed properly. Then SA 510, initial audit engagement, opening balances. Then walk through test examination in depth, okay, where we check IARD. This is very important, okay. This is the most important thing that we actually check when you talk about walkthrough test: initiation, authorization, recording, and documentation. Whether it is properly initiated, whether it is properly authorized, properly recorded, and properly documented. Okay, so these 4 words in your answer will actually fetch you marks in the exam. Okay, that should be correctly picked up by you. Then you have limitations of control. I told you this is very simple. This you can actually score here because it's a straight question again. Again, your division of internal control is components. See the thing, they have not explained it also further. If you want, you can give 1-2 liners of explanation, but here they've simply picked up the components. Okay, then. So tact and intelligence, they've given describe the this type of fraud is generally committed to avoid. Okay, so they've given you examples here. Detection of manipulation of accounts with way to presenting a false state of affairs is a task requiring great tact and intelligence because generally management personnel in the higher management cadre are associated with this type of fraud, and this is perpetrated in methodological way. This type of fraud is generally committed to avoid incidence of income tax for declaring dividend. So I told you they have some kind of incentive pressure, and also fraud risk factors you have explained, giving particularly to this particular situation that they have actually given in the question. Okay, so you can have a good reading of this question also. Then teaming and lading, writing off of bad debts, no accounting for sales and all. This is the way you suppress the cash receipts. Multiple examples are given. Then explanation, all the examples are there here. Yeah, then this is why IT has become so relevant for audit. I told you high-tech system, volume of transaction is high, policies of the company, regulatory requirements are there. Okay, then simple random sampling, stratified sampling. Then risk factor in case of test of control is under reliance, over reliance. In case of test of details, you have incorrect acceptance, incorrect rejection. Then you have analytical procedure. This is fine. We have discussed this. Perform other audit procedures. Then they have given you different techniques. Okay, then valuation. See here, verified depreciation is told because everything is valuation. Then the life of the asset, impairment is discussed, correct? Then, if you look at it properly, okay, so there are all the things that we pick up only when you're doing what valuation. So impairment is there, assets, future economic benefits, expected thing, okay? Then here above, if you see depreciation has been covered, correct? So you have to give to the point answer properly. Then cash and cash equivalent disclosure. This you have to simply have the proper knowledge of the Schedule 3 and you'll be able to catch it very easily. Yeah, this is important. I told you, if for this detailed preparation is important, consumption analysis, stock composition analysis, ratios, if you do it properly, you'll be able to pick up. Then 140 subsection 1 we have discussed in detail. Okay, so that is quite easy, nothing to be worried about. Rotation of auditors, you need to know the limits properly to understand rotation applicable or not. Audit committees functions. So basically they do examination, approval and all of that. So monitoring is the most important part that they take up. Responsibility of management, preparing financial statements, internal controls, assessing ability to continue as going concern, that I picked up properly. Then if there is lack of neutrality, then they're doing selective correction. I told you one point is that. Second point is with regard to a possible management bias in case of accounting estimates. Okay, so we have picked up this also correctly. Yeah, about operating expenses in the bank are the routine expenses. So there, what all you check is internal controls over them, because on operating expenses, controls have to be very strong. Trends, you need to see whether major expenses are there or not. Substantive analytical procedure, basically vouching and verification. Okay, now this was the one which I wanted to really pick up. The effective risk management system in bank. Okay, so here I told you just have to connect it with the components of internal control. So you see oversight and involvement of control process by TCWG. So we study as a part of control environment. Identification, measuring and monitoring of risk assessment process. Control activities, that is control, monitoring control. And then last, information system. So this, if you actually know the components of control, you'll be able to pick up very clearly. Okay, so they're all directly connected there only. So you'll be able to pick up very easily. So I told you in this RTP, they have not given very clearly about bank anything precise questioning, like provision and prudential norms and all those are not covered, but they have given very generalized questions in bank also. Expenditure audit, I told you all are covered. So you have to give a proper understanding of rules and regulations, then sanction, provision of funds. Okay, then you have proprietary audit. Okay, then you have economically and run or not, so performance audit. Correct? So all of these. So they have given a broad picture of everything. Or what is the reason or objective? That is quite understandable. Whether money is properly spent and all. Correct? So I think this was by and large a very good coverage of the entire RTP of the May 2023. Okay, and this one go will actually be very much helpful. Rather, when you're going through the RTP, see that when you're studying, you just cross mark it and keep it so that you don't have to open the RTP again. Once you've actually marked it in your book that this question has appeared, then when you're revising, you'll be able to pick up very easily. The good point about this time's RTP is that you can see there are some questions which are directly and very straightforward. So that gives you a kind of a confidence that you'll be able to tackle it. And also the case study questions were not that complicated. Okay. So with this, I genuinely believe that the topics like documentation, audit program, strategy, then when you talk about sampling, okay, these all are going to be very, very important discussions. Okay. So with this, I think we have completed this RTP properly. And only thing is, I would recommend that for the days of the days that you have now for your preparation, it is extremely important that a subject which is so theoretical, there is to be constant revision happening, because when it comes to theory papers, the retention capacity sometimes comes less compared to the other papers. So the only key for success in audit is the constant revision. So see that you actually keep on revising the topics every now and then. Okay, even if you're finished studying it twice, I would still recommend third time it has to happen, because theory subjects, the retention key will be only revision. Unless and until you revise, things are not going to trigger you in the examination. Okay. So with this, I think we have completed properly the entire revision test papers. So wishing you all a very best for the upcoming examination.